Welcome, my name is Colleen Tauke and I'm the sewing specialist at Fons & Porter. In this Quilting Quickly tutorial, I'm going to show you how to put together the blocks for the quilt called Sweethearts. Now if you'd like to purchase this pattern or the magazine that you can find it in, those are available at our website for purchase. Okay, we're going to be working with 10-inch pre-cut squares, and we're going to be adding a cream color background to it to make this adorable little sweetheart quilt. So the fun part about this is, since you're using a set of pre-cut 10-inch squares, you get an array from the entire fabric line. So we're going to be starting with those, but we're going to be cutting them up. And some people will say, well, why would you want to cut them up? It's because we have the whole line and we can make this wonderful pop of hearts of all these different prints in our quilt. So the first thing we're going to do is take those 10-inch squares and we're going to be cutting them down. Now in your pattern you'll find the diagram. It'll tell you exactly how you're going to be going about doing this. And I've drawn on this one so that you can see. We're going to be cutting 2.5-inch wide strips off of this 10-inch block. And then we're going to be making 4 rectangles out of these first 2 strips. And then we're going to be cutting 2.5-inch squares. So we need 4 rectangles and 4 squares off of each of our 10-inch pre-cuts. We're going to have 1 piece extra that can go into your next scrap project. So simply cut. The nice part is that we're using a 10-inch square, so 2.5 is an easy number to remember. So as we come in to make those cuts, you'll want to be very careful because you have a little bit extra, but a little bit of an insurance policy. Some people will say, well, why are you wasting that? Well, that's your backup just in case your rotary cutter does go a little rogue on you and you need to replace one of your strips or your squares. So the whole entire quilt, all the blocks are made from these rectangles, and you would splice them across and you have the pieces. Now what I would do when I was working on pieces here is I cut some of these pieces and I just kept my rectangles together and all of my squares together. Those are your resources for making the little heart blocks. So take those out of the way. And let's just look at it real quick. We're going to also be using that cream color background. So from your background fabric, I cut 2.5-inch squares. And it also requires you to cut some larger squares also for the setting. But we'll use those in just a minute here. The basic construction of these little blocks is to use one of the background 2.5-inch squares, a print, and then find its corresponding rectangle. Since you cut the same number of squares as rectangles from each piece, that means that they can be then joined together. So we're joining here with a 1/4-inch seam, pressing and then adding the rectangle to the side to make your little heart shape block. And making sure you take time to do the pressing because it keeps your patchwork nice and neat and things will join together in the end nicely. So once you've created your variety of blocks, this is the fun part because you get to have each of the little sweetheart blocks is a different print. Then you can go ahead and you've made an array of blocks in all of the different prints. Then you're going to be using your background fabric, and where there's one piece that we need to cut to put together this quilt. If you'll notice, the hearts sit on their points, which means that the quilt then is made in diagonal rows with an alternating, those larger cream color blocks we cut. But then the outside edge we need to fill in with setting triangles, and then we're going to use a narrow border at the very end to finish it off. Now all the diagrams for how to put this together are in your pattern. I do want to show you though how to use one tool that can help you when you're cutting those outside triangle pieces. And they can be cut from strips. Got a strip here and I've got one marked so you can see what we're going to be cutting. Is we're going to come in and we're going to take off the selvage here and we're going to cut some triangles that are smaller and then some larger ones. And I'm going to show you how this tool, it is the Fons & Porter Diagonal Sets Ruler, how that can make your cutting very efficient. So we're going to be taking the ruler and it calls for, I believe, a 3 3/8 inch strip of fabric. On the first piece I want to take off here, I'm going to use as the outside corner triangle. There's a small one there, and if you look at the diagrams for this quilt, you'll see that there is a small white triangle put on the outside edge, and this ruler will help you cut that. So what you can do is, using the corner of the triangle that has the yellow, solid yellow triangle at the tip, that tip hangs off of your strip. Then you line up these are for 4-inch blocks, to be used with 4-inch blocks. So you're going to line that 4-inch line with the bottom of your strip and simply come in, make a diagonal cut there. And I'm going to rotate this so it's easier for me to make a safe cut. Working in a small space can be a challenge sometimes. Okay, then we're going to come in and drop that ruler back where we had it in the beginning. And these will be the corner, and I'll show you how those lay in just a minute when we lay out our blocks. And then we're going to be cutting the side triangles for the sides, both sides, and the top and bottom. And on this ruler, again, we can use it for a 4-inch block. What we're going to do is lay it on the strip again. It even reminds you that, yes, you did use a 3 3/8-inch strip for this cut, and it's listed on the side there. The little tiny black triangle tip will hang off of the strip, just a little tiny bit, and you're going to line up and hold even so that you can make your last cut. And there I will be cutting, I'm cutting 2 at a time because I've got the fabric folded together, and then you would just proceed down the strip, cutting the required number of setting triangles for this little quilt. So I've got 4 of them cut there, and I will show you how those then help you to lay out your quilt. Move things out of the road. Okay, we're going to start in the top corner, and so we would have a heart shape there. A second one here. We'll just lay out a few of them quickly. And here's the fun part where you get to arrange the colors so they are all jumbled together and arranged the way you like. If you were using, you could even use one fabric and make all of the hearts in one print if you wanted. You're the designer, so you get to have that much fun. Okay, so this is where how the blocks are oriented. Remember those first pieces of settings that we cut off our strip are going to go in the outside corners. So this is the top left hand of the quilt. We'll set the others, we'd have the others for our other 3 corners. Those larger pieces that we cut are going to be used here and here. And if we had more rows on there, and we'll just put them in visually so you can get an idea. Here we go. Now, those larger background blocks that we cut are going to be your alternate ones. And then I'll talk you through how that construction then goes about, because you're thinking, okay, it's laid out, but how do I sew that together into a quilt? If you haven't done a diagonal sets before, we're going to pull this back, and you're going to do diagonal rows. So that means that you take this piece onto here, and you line up this edge and this, so you have that perfect right angle, and seam along here. Press out, and then do the same thing on this side. These edges line up, right sides together, seam here, and press out. And then you've created your first diagonal row. You can now go in and actually put the corner on, and it goes in here, and you can find the center. You can't fold this block or this triangle in half and find the center, but this is how I do it. The tip of this triangle needs to just align with this seam. So if you're thinking, well, where do I slide it along here? Just line up the tip of your triangle with your seam allowance, and you'll have it perfectly placed. So then you seam a 1/4-inch seam here and open out. Then you would just proceed through your quilt the rest of the way, making diagonal rows the same exact way. Now again, thinking about when you're putting these together, these are the ones that you line up here and press out. And you'll have dog ears here, but as you join your quilt together, then say join first row and second row, then that's when you're going to want to make sure that you find your seam allowances here that join up right across from each other. And add that narrow white outer border so your hearts kind of float through the quilt, and finish it off with a pink binding. You've created your own Sweethearts quilt. For more of our Quilting Quickly tutorials, visit our website. Thanks for joining me today.